Okay, we're into an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff to have another cool review for you guys from the brand Nodus. A little about them. They were founded back in 2017 out of Long Beach, California, out in LA County here in California. And you know what? Nodus is Latin for node, the intersection of two paths. And in this case, where quality meets affordability, heritage meets modernity, and design meets functionality. They're a modern microbrand fan favorite, really, offering high quality, high value wristwatches designed, assembled, and regulated here in the US with a 2-year, 24-month warranty. So very cool from a brand perspective. Now, in terms of the type of watch, I'd say this falls within that traveler's watch genre. Some key characteristics and design language, you're looking for something within this space. Of course, you're going to want to see GMT or world timer functionality, so you're able to track multiple time zones with relative ease. This is their Contrail GMT in the Terra colorway, or black and white. And the Contrail GMT takes the essence of its predecessors and elevates it with the sleek and versatile design for a comfortable fit on the wrist that ensures that the style doesn't compromise functionality. You guys can get these for $825 direct, and man, I am excited. I featured, I think I sneak peeked these a couple times during event coverage, and I've been pretty smitten with these since, even seeing a little teaser of it, let alone seeing them in the metal myself. And I have to say, Nodus really outdid themselves. If you're a Nodus fan, this might be Nodus's finest watch, and that's saying a lot because they've made some great ones. I'm a huge fan of my duality that I've had for years. I've had the previous Contrails, a couple of different ones, special blue dial, a black dial with a very similar graininess to its dial, and also very similar indices. But this one just takes it all up to another level, and I'm really excited for the brand and just, even for the community, because they've really set the bar extremely high for value in terms of what you can get from a brand with an original design for under $1,000, because these go for, again, $825 direct. So with that said, let's go ahead and zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, guys. Now, some of you with a keen eye might recognize this case and bracelet combination, and even the GMT functionality from another watch that I reviewed recently, which was a collaboration with Raven. And as cool as that watch is, guys, I've been really excited to share this version with you as well, because it does use the same case and bracelet. Of course, here you're going to get that turning bezel with that beautiful sapphire inlay, which honestly, especially within this colorway, does give you some nice Grand Seiko vibes, and that's cool. Another thing that gives you Grand Seiko vibes are this handset, the fact that they capped the handset beautifully there, guys. You just don't see that a lot in watches that are on the more affordable end. Now, in terms of the dimensions, 40.5 millimeters, 11.6 millimeters thick, 46.5 millimeters lug to lug, so really nice sweet spots all the way around. Of course, 316L stainless steel, brushed with some nice beautiful high polished accents there. You're also getting a boxed sapphire, which looks fantastic. Check that out, with an inner AR coating, and that boxed sapphire does have a double dome to it, so it is domed on both ends so that you can get a very nice distortion free view even at very harsh angles. Check that out. That is gorgeous. Of course, it's only going to be on those outer reaches of the box curve there that are going to give you distortion, but it's the kind of distortion that you enjoy because it accentuates the overall shape and the profile. Guys, look at this. Even if you can't see the dial and you're just like looking at that way that bezel flows off of that mid case and then that crystal, my goodness, it is a sight. Now, getting into some more specifics, 48 click bidirectional. So this rotating bezel is what you want for a rotating 24-hour bezel. Also, it is loomed, so it's sapphire insert with nice loom there, so you're going to be able to even tell extra time zones in the dark, which isn't necessarily a necessity, but hey, it's also a very nice to have. The crown is screw down, as you guys can see. Again, another very cool callback to the original Contrail watches, which looked a little bit more like a Zen 556 or a Zen 104 versus now in their later variations, which I think definitely take on a really, really handsome and more original look. I shouldn't say more original, it's just completely, if you ask me anyway. I mean, it's not like any of these parts were just sitting around for them to throw in. So this is a really good looking piece. Now you are getting, of course, that screw down crown is nicely signed. And then when you get to the case back here, it's a nice stamped and decorated case back. You can see there, you get the namesake there, the contrails. Those are the vapor trails that are left behind by aircraft as they fly through the sky. So very cool there thematically. And inside, although you can't see it, you're getting that 9075 flyer or true style GMT. I'm not saying that other GMTs are fake. That's just the lingo that is more popularized today. But yeah, it's a flyer style because you have the jumping hour hand versus the independently adjustable 24-hour hand. So very, very cool. One drawback is no quick date adjust, but you just basically have to cycle through, which is easy enough. And this thing's awesome. Like they also regulate these in 4 positions to plus or minus 8 seconds per day. So that's another nice little value add that you get with that USA assembly and regulation. And even if you're not a big fan, or you're not located in the US, or you're not a fan of USA assembly, just to be able to have a brand that has that level of hands-on and kind of in-house production, quality to it, I think is very important. So getting into this dial, that matte grainy texture and the applied indices look really, really clean, and they do keep a nice level of contrast, especially in this monochromatic colorway. And then you do have, of course, a beautiful pop of red. You also do have a roulette date wheel with an alternating numeral color, so you can see 6 is in red, but when we get to the next date, it would be in white. So it's very, very cool that's going to be something, again, to add a little bit more visual interest and just give you something else to look down and enjoy. One thing that is really, really nice that I don't want to undersell are going to be the hands, guys. Look at the job they did on these hands. Finely beveled hands and loomed, very reminiscent of my Grand Seiko SBGM 245. And, especially even when you consider that capped hand stack there, these are just beautifully done, and I can only imagine how much extra they had to pay for that additional tooling to have something produced that looked this looks fantastic. I mean, these hands, just beautiful, guys. Super Luminova BGW9 grade A, so you're going to be getting a nice bit of initial brightness as well as a good amount of staying power with this luminescence. Now, in terms of the water resistance, 200 meters, guys, so you're getting, the capabilities of a full-on dive watch, but you're also going to be getting the capabilities of a full-on traveling adventure watch. 20 millimeter lug width, that is also drilled, that also accommodates with quick release spring bars. Now, these aren't my favorite types of quick release spring bars, just because it's just a little less refined, but thankfully for me, I have a bit of a rounder wrist, so they're never, I never have an issue with them hitting the back of my wrist. But I will say that, they're not my favorite, but hey, they're there, which does make it a lot easier, especially when you're worried about doing any damage to such a beautiful case. So that is nice. One thing you'll also notice, though, as well, is although these are, female end links, they do come out slightly, protrude outside of the natural lines of where the lugs fall off. So your ultimate lug to lug will be slightly longer, but I will say they have a beautiful drop, which does follow the general drape of these lugs. So even if you have a smaller wrist, it's not going to look inorganic. And of course, if you have a larger wrist, then it's not going to matter at all. But just something I did want to mention, and that is, I'm sure, another byproduct a little bit of the fact that they did use quick release spring bars. So there was always going to be some level of trade-off here and there from a production standpoint. Now, this bracelet's fantastic, guys. 3-link steel bracelet, beautifully articulated, flat brushed, beautifully polished beveled edges there. Ties into the Nodus clasp, which is really nice. You have, of course, nice folding section here. You're getting nice triggers, and then when you get to doing some micro adjust, push button toolless micro adjust. Now, I do wish that it did have a slightly longer clasp, just so you wouldn't have to see that slightly exposed portion. But, you know, in reality, you can size the watch to hopefully never need to even see that. So we get that there. And even at that one click, I think it flows nicely, especially when you kind of compare this end to this end. So even when that shows, I don't think it's an eyesore. It's really only when it's fully extended to where, you know, that visual gap might come into play, to where it just gives you something you're not thrilled about. So with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, on my 7.5-inch wrist, this looks gorgeous. Check that out. Beautiful presence, beautiful lines here. Organic, just flows, wraps right around the wrist. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to see some perspective distortion, and it's going to make the watch seem visually larger than it actually is. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low, right? And then just tighten up the frame slightly so you guys can still get a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio. Check that out. Very nice, very handsome. Look at these lines. My goodness. The details in the crown grips, I shouldn't say the crown, the bezel grips, and then of course the crown knurling looks fantastic as well. And that beautifully thick, gorgeous bevel that comes down like almost an omega-like way looks fantastic. These nice links, my gosh, this is absolutely a stunner on the wrist. And I mean, yeah, under $1,000, $825, guys, from a brand that really thinks about and executes these watches from top to bottom, and a brand that's picking up a lot of steam. I mean, they were hugely successful with a more expensive model that they did in collaboration with Matt Farah of the Smoking Tire. But I have to say, this is just this. I mean, this one speaks to me, guys. This is just something very, very special, and at the price point, I mean, it's up there. This is top tier, top shelf micro brand status right here, especially thinking about the price point. But even take the price point out, I mean, what they were able to do is very impressive. So my gosh. With that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Oh, yes. Guys, check that out. Just so crisp, so bright, really beautifully sharp, no bleeding on, around the numerals when it comes to that sapphire bezel insert. I mean, just executed absolutely top notch. Even if you can't appreciate those little details, I will tell you, as somebody that has had to nitpick through a lot of details on a lot of different watches, there's a lot to appreciate here. But one thing I always like to work in is a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you can find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And my gosh, guys, look at the brushing. So uniform as the light glides over it. That beautiful dial, that grainy texture that can go from very dark to more of a charcoal and anthracite gray if it gets fully lit up here, but it never washes out. You can still, of course, make out the full legibility, which is another thing that I like like to test when I do these types of transitional lighting, scenes, because again, it's nice to know that your tool watch can work and perform its tool, functionalities there. So very, very cool. I mean, I'm blown away. Look at that. The contrast, the crispness. It is just fantastic. Just beautifully done, guys. So it's great to have a watch that looks great in the daylight, but it's also nice to have something that looks good in the darkness, great lume, and then you have something that even in between, so there's not a lighting situation, whether it's blacked out, whether it's well lit, whether it's partially lit. This thing is just looking gorgeous the whole darn time, and I'm here for it. So guys, closing thoughts on the wrist. Perfectly balanced, great thin wear with very handsome proportions. In terms of model variants, there's the white dial Polaris model, the blue dial Impulse model, and the sand dialed Laguna model also available. Check the links in the description for other options availability and whatnot, depending on when you watch this video. So in terms of comparable models, the Contrail GMT matches up well against some pretty tight competition within the microbrand space. Now that the Miyota 9075 has really emerged as the enthusiast choice for a premium flyer GMT under $1,000, and typically close to $1,000, because Miyota doesn't let any old brand just buy these and put them in their cheap watch. They really want to make sure that this is making it into more kind of flagship worthy pieces, and in this case, Nodus delivers. My gosh. So for me, guys, bottom line, Nodus just continue to step their game up, and this time they've even helped establish a new standard within this already highly competitive market. This is, if you're considering a watch with this movement, Nodus gives you every reason to have this model, the Contrail GMT, within that conversation. It might not win, based on your own personal tastes, but you gotta consider it because it's just that good. Now, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.